Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2006 action film Crank. Now, Crank is one of those films that is absolutely an acquired taste along with its sequel. But if you can develop the taste for it, if you can really embrace the wild, chaotic, crass, insane nature of the film, I think you can have a really good time. In a lot of ways, Crank is very much like a live action Grand Theft Auto playthrough. And that's a big part of why I find it to be so enjoyable, as well as a lot of other people. This is easily one of my favorite Jason Statham films, along with the sequel. And to me, it's just a lot of fun. It's just a really fun, engaging film with a lot of wild, crazy swings and a signature style by the two directors, and a lot of fun, over the top, stylized action and violence. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on Crank, I would like to give a special shout out to Bizoko for requesting another review. Crank is directed by the duo of Neveldine and Taylor, and this was actually their first film. And I think for their first time out, they did a hell of a good job. This is not an easy first time film for a filmmaker, because it's a film that takes some massive risks with the style of the film, the camera work, the framing. The plot itself is just pure insanity. It's a cracked out, whacked out combination of Run Lola Run and Speed. And it's something that, if you had any moment where the direction didn't match the chaotic energy of the film, it would be very glaring and very obvious. But that didn't happen. Neveldine and Taylor found a way to consistently inject the direction of this film with crack, with this just crazy rush of adrenaline. And it's a big part of why the film works as well as it does. And you could definitely tell that they were willing to take massive jumps and just go balls to the wall with this. And I have a lot of respect for that. I have a lot of respect for any filmmaker who's willing to do that, especially their first time out. These two easily could have just played things safe, had a few moments where they went wild, but instead they decided to go wild and crazy for the entirety of the runtime. And that is a big part of why the film was such a uh, surprise hit, and a big part of why it put them on the map as directors. Crank is also written by Neveldine and Taylor, and I think they did equally as good of a job writing this film as they did directing it. Uh, the film, when it comes to its direction, was a bit of a tall task because of the ambitious nature of the concept, and also so was the screenplay. This was a script that easily could have been too absurd, too silly, uh, took itself not seriously enough, or took itself too seriously. It had to find the right balance of stylized, comic book, video game style, hyper violence and action, as well as dark comedy, and just find a way to make those two things mesh. And I genuinely believe that the two did that and then some. Uh, and they also had to find a way to make this very chaotic, very cracked out story still feel like it's somewhat cohesive from beginning to end. And that is not necessarily an easy thing to do. And it definitely helps that they start things off with a very compelling opening where Chev Chelios, this hitman, he wakes up one morning in his flat and he sees on his table in the living room there's a DVD that has the words "fuck you" written on it. So, understandably, he's curious about what the fuck this is. And so he puts the DVD into the DVD player, and some fuckhead from the Triheads is on there named Verona, and he's talking shit, and he tells Chev that he poisoned him with some Chinese cocktail of poison the night before, and essentially tells Chev that he's got like an hour to live. And Chev's reaction is very understandable because he gets pissed off and kicks the TV and rips it off the wall and smashes it with his bare hands. And that is just a great way to provide the audience with an idea of the kind of film that you're going to get. This is the kind of ride that you're going to be on. It's going to be loud, it's going to be brash, and it's going to be in your face. And after that, he just starts running as fast as he can because he knows his time is limited, but he's determined to maybe find an antidote. But if he can't find the antidote, he's determined to find Verona and beat his ass and send him 6 feet under. Uh, and it's a simple plot in that regard, but it's got enough twists and enough crazy, wild moments and elements to it that it still works very effectively. And I just love how it escalates. I love how the two writers found a way to really just ratchet things up, to crank things up another notch consistently throughout the runtime. He calls up his doc named Doc Miles, who is an absolute riot. The way that character is written is hilarious. And it's just a really strong example of this film's wry humor. And the doc is telling him, "Hey, I'm surprised you're still alive, considering the shit that they put into you, but you got to keep going. You got to keep moving. You can't stop. Otherwise you're going to die. So and not only that, you got to get some adrenaline. So you got to find ways to pump yourself full of adrenaline, whether it's running as fast as you can for as long as you can, whether it's doing crazy stunts with motorcycles and cars, or getting involved in fist fights, or get yourself some cocaine, which is what he eventually does. The first thing he decides is to get some cocaine, but first he has to figure out, where Naylor, not Naylor. Forgive me, I have Naylor on my mind because I just watched the Mariners blow a 2-0 lead in the ALCS to the fucking Blue Jays. But it's just one of those things. Uh, but yeah. So he's got to find Verona, and he decides he's going to try to talk to some local gangs and try to, pick their brain. He finds this guy at this bar that he knows, and you think that they're going to get involved in some sort of physical altercation, but it actually just turns into a little verbal spat between the two, while the guy has his own gang pointing guns at Chelios, while Chelios has a gun drawn at the one guy. But um Chev just smooths things over, gets some of the information that he was looking for, and then asks the guy for some cocaine, and then Chev snorts it off the bathroom floor, and then just gets involved in a fight with all of these uh, thugs, all of these other, members of the one guy's gang. He's throwing guys out the window and beating the crap out of them. He's getting thrown out the window. And then he winds up getting a cab. And then he stops at a convenience store and loads up on Rockstar energy drinks and all this other stuff in order, to keep his energy level up. And he's also trying to get a hold of his girlfriend Eve, but he's not having much success because she's not answering the phone. Then you find out later that she was just taking a nap the entire time, which I love, actually. I think that's really funny. And I actually like the idea that she doesn't show up until like 40 minutes into the movie. Gives you more time to see the dynamic between Chev and other people that he knows and is friends with, or uh, he has connections with. So you get to see more of a dynamic between him and Doc Miles, between him and Kalo. And then thanks to Kalo, he actually winds up tracking down Verona's brother. And that that winds up leading to a really bloody, violent scene in behind like a restaurant where the brother, he thinks that he's gonna find Chev because I think he might have heard something that Chev was gonna be there, or Chev was looking for him. And I think actually what happened is Chev found him at this restaurant and he was chasing after him. But the guy thinks that he might have gotten upper hand, but Chev kind of decided to take more of a stealth approach and wait till the guy goes out to the back of the restaurant, and then he pops out with a butcher knife and chops the brother's hand off. And then the brother, because he's pumped full of adrenaline, it's not stopping him. He's still trying to beat the crap out of Chev, punches the asphalt and fucks up his other hand. And then he decides to go after Kalo, tries to smash the shit out of him with a trash can. And then Kalo, he's rearing up, he's trying to take him on, but he knows he's no match. And Chev then grabs the severed hand from the brother that still has a loaded gun in it, grabs the gun, points it to the back of the brother's head, and just pulls the trigger and blows his head clean off. And Kalo is covered in blood and brains, and it's just a bloody mess. And that entire scene was just really well executed by the two writers. There's some hilarious lines of dialogue by Chev. The whole bit with Kalo trying to knock the brother out with a rolling pin, and then the whole thing with the severed hand, and then using the hand with the gun to blow the brother's head clean off. Like, that was a really creative and fun bit of action and carnage. And it just continues to just get crazier and crazier because now Chev, after he does some digging and speaks to Carlito, who was his former boss, he finds out that he was double crossed and he was screwed over, and there is no antidote to this poison. So now he's just got to find Verona and kill his ass and get revenge. But first, he has to, get a hold of Eve, his girlfriend, tell her what he does for a living because he never really told her that, and tell her goodbye. And he finds her and saves her from some of the other hitmen that Verona or Carlito was sending after her. And he also, I think actually after that, no, he saves her, and then he has to wind up finding some extra adrenaline. And I could be wrong in terms of the order here. He might have gone to the hospital beforehand, but there's this really wild and just whacked out scene at a hospital where Chev goes to a hospital and even holds a doctor hostage to give him some synthetic adrenaline. And the doctor is actually played by Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny, which is a really, crazy kind of thing. Because this honestly seems like something you might see in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So he forces this doctor to give him uh, uh, some epinephrine. And then he also forces the doctor to juice him up with the paddles and even sends him flying into the back of an elevator. And he's running down the streets afterwards, nothing but a hospital gown and his dick up. And it's just a wild and crazy sequence of events. And he even rides a stolen motorcycle that he stole from a cop, and does it has no hands. He just stands on top of the motorcycle, isn't even holding on to the handlebars, and he's just doing all of this crazy stuff in order to keep his adrenaline up. And then eventually he's running out of things to do. He's running out of energy. He's running out of juice. And so he hears from Doc Miles that a way to, get his energy back up is to have sex. And then while he runs into his girlfriend again, he winds up having sex with her in front of a bunch of people in the middle of Chinatown. And eventually he gets it up and gets his energy level up enough, and he winds up finding uh, Verona. Actually, he asked Verona to meet him because he's finally realized that he's probably not going to make it, but he's gonna take Verona with him. And just when you think he's outnumbered, he's outgunned, he's got no chance, Verona's about to inject him with another dose of the cocktail. He has an ace up his sleeve, and he points his fingers at the bad guy, and one of the bad guy's henchmen pulls the trigger, and it works. A guy gets shot and falls down, and then he does it again. Then you find out that he actually has his own army with him, because he has gotten Don Kim from the Triads to help him out, because he let Don Kim live when he was asked to kill him. And that was the whole reason why everything was going south, and why he was involved in all of this, is because Don Kim was killed. And in reality, Don Kim was alive the entire time. And Don Kim and his men show up and start blasting. And then you have this gang war going on. And just when you think, okay, it can't get any worse, Chev actually gets injected with another syringe full of this cocktail by Verona or Carlito. And Chev, realizing that, man, it's probably gonna kick in pretty soon, and I don't really have any other ways to uh, get my adrenaline up, and I don't have any artificial adrenaline left. He just decides to just muster whatever strength he has left, and he takes out some bad guys and sees that Verona is on a helicopter and gets onto the helicopter. And while the helicopter is in midair, he grabs Verona's ass and tosses him out of the helicopter, and then he winds up jumping out of the helicopter with him. Actually, what he does is he grabs Verona, and the two of them jump out of the helicopter in a suicide dive. And they're fighting in midair, and Chev gets a hold of Verona and breaks his neck. And then Chev winds up hitting the ground below. And you think that, he's a goner, he's dead, but you still hear his heart beating. So, despite it all, Chev isn't dead yet. And the film even has a video game little cutscene after the end credits where it just shows like a 8-bit video game version of Crank, which is a lot of fun and creative. And that's exactly what Crank is in a lot of ways. It's very much like a video game. And I think that the two writers, Neveldine and Taylor, they definitely were gamers, and they definitely knew what they were doing. They knew what they were trying to do with it. They were trying to be as over the top, wild, crazy as they possibly could be, injected with a lot of tongue in cheek humor to make the whole craziness of it, the whole unrealistic, wild nature of it feel right at home and not feel like it's something that's just too out of left field. And as a result, they just created, in my opinion, a classic screenplay that just has a lot of really fun, memorable lines of dialogue, some great action, a really fun, cool idea where instead of having a plot involving a bus that has a bomb on it, like in Speed, where hey, the bus can't go below 50 miles an hour or it will explode. It's actually a human being. He's got to keep going at a certain speed. He's got to keep pumping himself up with adrenaline. Otherwise, he's going to die. And I thought that was a really fun and cool idea. And it was very well executed in the end. And it's also unapologetically uh, politically incorrect. And I think that's a big part of why it works so well, is because it just has this fuck you mentality. And it matches Chev Chelios and his personality perfectly. And the entire film is just injected with that. It's injected with, a massive amount of adrenaline and testosterone and just fuck you energy. And I think the screenplay is easily one of the most important and vital things when it comes to Crank, and why it works, and why it's just so deliriously dynamic and entertaining to watch. But of course, the cast is also another major part of it. Jason Statham, this is a role that he was born to play as Chev Chelios. He was just so perfect in this role. His deadpan when it comes to the one-liners and the dialogue, and he's just a badass. And he definitely does make you buy that he's not only this hitman, but he actually can live through all this shit. And apparently, they were thinking about casting Nicolas Cage, which I find to be really intriguing, and I think that could have worked. But I'm glad that Jason Statham got the role though, because I don't know if I really would buy Nick Cage when it comes to the fighting and the tough guy sort of aspect, like the toughness that Jason Statham displays in this, and you also wouldn't have that that Brit attitude. So I think it might have worked, and you would have seen Cage go full Cage on crack, and that might have been worth it to see just for that alone. But at the end of the day, Statham was still the best fit in my opinion, and he really carries this film. And the rest of the cast is good too. I mean, Amy Smart, she's a lot of fun in this. She's kind of a ditzy character, but she does it in a way that's still endearing and likable. And she has some great chemistry with Jason Statham. Jose Pablo Cantillo is Ricky Verona. He's more of an annoying prick, than like an intimidating presence. But I think that worked. I think it's actually one of those rare instances where the antagonist isn't that intimidating. He's more of like a little a yippy dog, but it works in the film's favor because of the kind of movie that it is. And it just makes, this little annoying prick uh, all the more of a thorn in Chev's side because this guy is nothing. And he's a little pipsqueak, and it makes it all the more frustrating and all the more effective when it comes to the drama when he and all the uh, trouble that he's having trying to find this guy. And, you have Carlos Sens, who plays Carlito, and he's fine the few scenes that he's in. Dwight Yoakam steals every scene that he's in this as Doc Miles. I love his performance as his character. I would probably say easily the favorite role of mine when it comes to Dwight Yoakam and his career, and he's done a lot of stuff. Efren Ramirez, Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite. He has a fun role as the flamboyant crossdresser Kalo, who's friends with Chev. And you also have a few other people, like a cameo by Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park as a stoner at the pharmacy who uh, lets Chev know a little secret about nasal spray containing epinephrine. Um, and you also have, like I mentioned earlier, Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Dennis. It was like, what the hell is Dennis doing in this movie? But yeah, it's just it is so surreal seeing him in this, to be honest. I was like, holy shit, it's Dennis. But yeah, it's a good cast, but it's definitely spearheaded by Jason Statham. And the film also features some all right cinematography by Adam Biddle. This is not a film that has like amazing cinematography. In fact, there's a lot of shots in this that kind of look a little rough because of the type of camera work and the type of cameras that the two directors decided to use, which are not in the best quality. They're not HD. But it gave the film an extra bit of grit to it, which I actually think worked. And the editing by Brian Burden is a massive boon to Crank. A big part of why this film has this cranked up, cracked out energy to it is because of the editing. There's a lot of split screen stuff, there's a lot of freeze frames, quick cuts, all this kind of stuff. And in the wrong hands and with the wrong mindset, it could be very schizophrenic and be very shaky, but it actually feels like it's still somewhat controlled, even though it's very overstimulated. It's the editing is just uh definitely something that feels like the film is being edited by an editor who's high on stimulants or has drank like two Monster Energy drinks, but it is something that just makes the manic pace of the film even more manic. It makes the frenetic action and the craziness of it just all the more frenetic and genuinely fantastic. So a big part of the unique look of the film too is also due to the editing. So a big part of why the film stands out and works as well as it does is because of Burden. He was not a burden to the film when he easily could have been. And the music by Paul Hasslinger I also like, but the best parts of this film music wise are the original songs that they use, well, not an original song, the licensed songs that they picked for the soundtrack. You know, Mental Health by Quiet Riot, which the film opens up with very early on. Tricks Are for Kids by The Crowd. Turn Me Loose by Loverboy. I never thought that Loverboy and that song in particular would be a good fit for a bloody action scene that culminates with a guy getting his hand cut off and then his head blown up later by his own gun in his own hand that was cut off and another guy's hand. But it worked. It was actually a perfect fit. So that's a big part of why Crank is so good too. Is it has a lot of these very eccentric out of the box song choices too, for the soundtrack. I mean, you have a song called "Miracles" by Jefferson Starship that is also used in the film. And yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it except. Yeah, I definitely agree with Access Hollywood. It's an adrenaline fueled thrill ride. But yeah, that is my thoughts on Crank. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.